Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years. We're dedicated to delivering quality auto parts, expert customer service, fast and free shipping, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. So visit us at 1aauto.com, your trusted source for quality auto parts.
In this video, we're going to be working with our 1996 GMC Sierra K1500. We're going to show you how to remove and replace your vehicle's ignition, switch, and wiring harness. If you like this video, please click subscribe. We have a ton more information on this truck as well as many other makes and models. And if you need this part for your vehicle, you can follow the link down in the description over to 1aauto.com. Here are the items you'll need for this repair. Remove the negative post from your battery using a 5/16 or an 8mm wrench. Be very careful, this wrench isn't long enough, but if you have a longer one, you may be able to hit the positive battery terminal with it. You want to be very careful you don't do that. Remove the terminal and isolate it from the battery. Now, just so you can see, because it's pretty difficult to show on the back of the steering wheel, there are these notched pins, all 4 of them, on the airbag, and these sit into these 4 holes. So what I did to release them is there's openings in the back you can reach through with the flat blade screwdriver and pry them up and out of the way. Pretty difficult to get back there and see that, but you just need to reach in there and pry it up out of the way with your screwdriver and it'll pop itself up. Remove the airbag. Just a little hook on the harness. Need to disconnect to get this out all the way. Remove the orange safety. You may need a screwdriver to release the electrical connector here. Put your seatbelt through the steering wheel. This will help to hold it while you break the 21mm bolt in the center loose. Release your seatbelt and remove it from the wheel. Make sure that the steering wheel is nice and straight and flat. Finish removing the 21mm nut and wiggle the wheel or hit the back sides. Now, if you can't just knock the steering wheel off by hand, you can use a steering wheel puller. This is actually kind of a universal puller. These are available from 1aauto.com, the same one we have here, and it comes with a variety of bolts. So pick the ones that fit your vehicle. Go ahead and thread them all the way in. You can just do this by hand because they'll bottom out in there. If you try to get them much tighter than that, you could risk damaging something underneath. Once those are in, install the center bolt. Tighten that down until it bottoms out on the center bolt of the steering wheel. Remember to try to keep this straight. Using a 19mm socket and ratchet and holding the wheel straight, tighten down the center bolt. Once it comes free, the wheel should come off pretty easily. Carefully remove the steering wheel. Slide the wire for the airbag clock spring through it. Remove the snap ring on the clock spring with a pair of snap ring pliers. Simply put the tips of the pliers into the openings on the snap ring. Spread the snap ring and lift it up out of its grooves. Slide the snap ring off. If you have a tilt steering column, make sure that it is tilted all the way up. Grab the lever firmly, pull that out. Remove the 2 T25 Torx on the bottom of your steering column cover. Pull down to separate your column, and then push in and pull out to release these hooks in the back. Now there are 2 of these inverted T5 Torx that you need an E5 inverted Torx socket to remove. However, if you have a 6.4 millimeter, it fits on there pretty snug, and as long as you go careful, you should be able to spin them right out. Reinstall the lever for your tilt column if equipped. Push down, remove the lever again so you don't bump it. So it's hard to show, and we'll show you when the piece is removed, but there's a small hole in the top of the ignition cylinder that you can get with a hooked pick. And I'm looking through the hole for the hazard switch to see this. What you need to do is push down on that. You want to hold your key like you're trying to start it, and then push down on that little hole, and you'll feel it release. Slide it out as far as it'll go, then turn it back some and remove it fully so you can remove your steering column upper cover. Now, just to give you a better idea of what we were doing with that cover on top, and yours will be right here blocking your view, but you can look through, reach into this hole, key to the start position, push down, pull out, remove your pick, rotate backwards, remove your cylinder. Remove the 4 7mm screws along the bottom knee panel of the dashboard with a 7mm socket and ratchet. We have some, it looks like wood screws and some little machine screws that have been put in here. It looks like they might be for an old brake controller for the trailer or something like that. I may have to remove these, but they shouldn't be there on your vehicle. Now, all along the top of the knee pan and the dash, there are some plastic clips, so we just have to pop those out. There we go. Pull out your e-brake release handle as far as you can and use a small flat blade screwdriver to compress the tabs. There's one on each side. We're not going to be able to show you the one on the inside of the panel just because of the way the dash is shaped, but it's on the opposite side of this clip. Then you should be able to turn the e-brake and slide the cable out to remove your knee panel. Remove the 4 10mm bolts holding the metal knee pan to the dash with a 10mm socket and ratchet. Remove the metal knee panel from the dash. Using a small flat blade screwdriver, release the tab and rotate this sensor out of its opening. This is the little sensor that recognizes your keys in the ignition, so it'll ding so you don't forget it in there. We'll then need to remove the 2 E4 inverted Torx. These cannot be removed with a regular hex socket like we've showed you on other tricks. For this one, you're actually going to need an E4 inverted Torx socket and a ratchet. And a long E4 inverted Torx would be ideal. However, as long as you're careful and you don't put too much pressure against the plastic switch, you should be able to remove them with a regular one. Carefully remove the switch from the column. We'll now need to remove it from the wiring harness going down into the dash. So clip any zip ties that are holding it together. I'm just going to remove this dash vent so I can see a little bit better.
Peel open the wrap around the harness. This is kind of just like a really wide electrical tape. You can just peel that off. Go through the opening in the dash where the center vent was and remove the 7mm bolt in the middle of the ignition switch harness. On the side of the connector for the ignition switch and your multifunction switch is another 7mm screw you'll need to remove. Once that's out, you can slide that connector up and remove the harness. At the front of the switch, on this side of the connector, pry up and slide the side connectors out of the main connector and remove the harness and ignition switch from the column. Here we have our old ignition switch and wiring harness that we removed from our truck and our new part from 1AAuto.com. As you can see, these parts are exactly the same. We have the same OE colored wiring harness. We have the same switch body, the same connection at the bottom here, which even includes the slots for sliding the rest of the electrical connections at the bottom in, with a new captured bolt to secure our connector into place. And the new sensor, which is tucked off here, we'll pop that out, which alerts you when your key is in the ignition and creates that dinging sound to make sure you don't forget your keys. Now these switches can get worn out or the wires can get damaged or broken. So this new piece from 1A Auto will replace the entire assembly, meaning that anything that's gone wrong in this portion of your ignition control will all be repaired from top to bottom here. It'll go in direct fit, just like our original equipment, and fix you up right. There was nothing wrong with our old ignition switch, so rather than wasting a nice new part, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the old one. The process will be the same as installing your new switch. All you do is slide it down under the steering column. And I'm going to start up here just to make things a little bit easier. Make sure that the keyway in your ignition cylinder is lined up quite. There we go. We'll then reinstall our two E4 inverted Torx screws. Reinstall the key switch, that little point facing in here. It'll fall into the opening. And rotate it until it locks in. Slide the multifunction switch harnesses back into their slots until they lock in on the ignition switch harness. We'll then push back up on the receptacle and set the connector back into place. This should go in at least partially. Before we slide the receptacle back down into its bracket and tighten our screw back up with our 7mm socket and ratchet. Don't forget the 7mm screw on the side of the plug receptacle. Resecure all of the harnesses in the sheathing here, and then we'll throw a few zip ties back on there where we cut them out from at the top and bottom. Reattach your vent. Reinstall the steel support for the knee pan. And the 4 10mm screws. Tighten down the bolts with the 10mm socket and ratchet. Pull your e-brake cable back through the opening and twist it to lock it back into place. Line up your clips. These ones on the dash vent you should pop in first. Once the clips are in, reinstall all 4 of the 7mm screws. Pop your e-brake release handle back into place.
Reinstall the upper half of your steering column cover. Be sure to line up this little rubber boot for your gear selector lever. Just kind of line up the channels and slide it in there. This is the detent that we had to hit on the ignition cylinder. So slide that back in. Make sure your key is in all the way before you start doing this. Slide it all the way in. Turn it forward and back to make sure it engages. Reinstall your tilt lever. Place one hand firmly on top of the steering column. Release the lever and slowly allow it to go up. One thing you don't want to do, and I'm just going to do this for demonstration purposes, is just release the lever, because that thing really moves. If this isn't aligned, or your shifter's not in the right place, you've left a tool in there, or even worse, if your fingers were in here for some reason, that's going to do some damage. So make sure you let it go up slowly so you can reinstall your lower cover. Reinstall your 2 E5 inverted Torx screws into the upper steering column cover. Remove the tilt latch rod again. And now these hooks need to slide in and under and then pull forward to engage. Line up the lower boot for your gear selector after you've set the hooks in the back of your column cover. Snap everything back into place. Once it's lined up, reinstall your 2 T25 Torx screws in the bottom of the column. Reinstall your tilt lever. Carefully reinstall the harness for your clock spring, and then pull the alignment pin out of your new part. Reinstall your wheel onto the splines. Now, one of the cool things about these wheels is they have a keyed spline, so you can see I can't get it on, and then it lines up and falls right in. Install the 21mm nut as tight as you can. Torque the steering wheel nut to 29 foot-pounds. Make sure to attach the harness back into its clips, as well as the one on the airbag, but we'll reconnect our connector and install our safety tab first. Slide the bag into place and just push it in firmly to engage all 4 clips. Now, the most important step anytime you work on your airbags or anything that has to do with the airbag system is put your key in, turn it to the run position, then reconnect your negative battery terminal. Remember to tighten this down with a 5/16 wrench. Now, the reason we do this in the order that we did is power just came back on in the vehicle and our key is already on. So if anything bad had happened with the airbag, like a chafed wire or some other issue, The bag would have deployed now while we're out here safely under the hood, rather than once we get in the vehicle and turn the key and we're sitting right in front of it. While airbags are meant as a safety device, in improper conditions, they can be very dangerous.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.